Hello everyone. In today's video I'm going to talk about puzzle solving fly, and it's going to be very simple one of my favorites, pheasant tail. Not much to it, but techniques involved are going to be very interesting, I think, and the situation that it solves are going to be very interesting also. So let me just briefly explain when I would use and what kind of puzzles I would solve with this one. So imagine a situation that you are limited by using just one fly, regulations or just situations like that, maybe multiple currents or something, so you have to use just one fly, and you need to get it down deep and very quickly. So if you're in competition, 4mm bead may not do it. If you are fishing freestyle, maybe you have beads that are like 4.5, 5.5mm or even 6. These are super heavy. But if you're kind of limited with what you have, javi bead may be a solution because it's very compact. It's kind of teardrop, but more compact than teardrop style tungsten. So it gets down deep. So where you need it, maybe deep pool. It goes down very deep. I fished a couple of meters deep, literally 3, 4, even 5 meters deep pools with it. It's different, but it can be done. Then very obvious situation, you have like shallow and then sudden drop off, and the water is pushing there, so the food will be somewhere around, but the fish will be waiting under the current. So you want to cut through the current and go through that drop off right into the fish, but you have very narrow window where you can do it. So javi bead can help you there. Then fast flow is obvious. So when you have this really strong riffles, then you just throw javi bead over there, and you may have a solution in it, or even combination of these. So that's where I would use javi bead. It's not something that you would use every day. On most rivers where I fish, I wouldn't use it every day, obviously, but when I do need to use it, it's definitely a puzzle solver. Now, when it comes to tying, I want to explain to you how I'm mounting this bead, because it's kind of tricky to do it properly, but obviously it's not the only way you can do it. I will do it my way, and like whenever I try to tie something differently to see how it works, maybe improve something. And I think that I kind of improved a little bit my tying with this bead. There is kind of drop off, which I want to avoid using these beads, and the biggest issue I had with these beads is like this tapered part of the javi bead that goes into taper like this. So whenever you try to tie your thread over it, it just slides down and piles up at the tail of the fly, which is super annoying. Then I kind of solved that problem with wire, and of course durability of these flies is always an issue because they bounce more often on the bottom, and well, when you have something that bounces on the bottom on the rocks, when you cast it, you may hit the rock or something. So you need to improve durability of your flies, obviously. So that would be more or less it. Let's just get into materials, where I will explain a little bit more, and then tying. I'll try to keep it a little bit shorter than usual. So let's talk about materials. When it comes to hook, I was experimenting with different kinds of hooks, jig hooks, a couple of dry fly hooks, and I got stuck with dry fly hook, classic dry fly hook. I didn't have a hook with slightly longer shank, which would be preferable, but classic like Tiemco 103 dry fly hook would be perfectly okay for this. So that's what I'm being using here. I've been experimenting with jig hooks, and that jig hook is like something that I've been using the most of the time before, but I will explain to you why I'm not using this. Jig hooks and these small javi beads, they don't fit together nicely sometimes. Jig hook wire is sometimes maybe too thick for the slot that javi bead has here. So instead of like having a thread layer over the hook and then fitting the javi bead over it, sometimes it doesn't work well. for that reason I'm using a dry fly hook, plus dry fly hook penetrates more easily. Dry fly hook is something my choice for this one. Javi bead, I already told you like why I need it for some special occasions, drop-offs, deep pools, fast currents, or combination. Now thread I'll use is going to be Semperfly Nano Silk in 18 aught. The reason why I'm using this thread is because it's strong and because it's very thin, and I don't want too much build up on this body which is already built up. So very simple. Wire, I already tied a couple of these with purple wire, with gold wire, just experimenting. I don't think it matters much, but I just like to have different things in my box. It just looks okay. So for this fly I'm going to use this soft wire gold small size. It says small, but it's rather thick for this one. But the reason why I'm using thick one is because it's going to make fly a little bit more durable, because it's more, thicker wire is more resilient to hitting on the rocks and bouncing over along the bottom. Obviously I will use some super glue to reinforce everything, and 502 you have to test it. I use it for perdigons instead of UV glue sometimes, but just wrap thread a layer over the hook, cover it with a layer of this super glue, and I'll leave it overnight. After it dries, leave it overnight in water. If it doesn't get white, that's stuff for you. So I like this one because it doesn't get white, and it's perfect solution because it makes fly really tough. Main material is pheasant tail. I don't think it needs an introduction. It's one of my favorite materials ever, so why not using it in this one? So I'm gonna make this tough pheasant tail nymph for you guys. Let's get into tying. So I will start with size 16 hook, dry fly hook, because of the finer wire, and this wire penetrates, well, hook point penetrates more easily in fish's mouth. The reason why I'm not using 14 instead of 16 here for the 2.5mm javi bead is purely because javi bead, as you can see, it's kind of oversized. It fits the whole hook shank. But if I'm using 14, the shank won't go into the slot, not a little bit almost. If I'm using finer wire hook, and it just doesn't work in my opinion, because the finer wire will get more easily damaged along the bottom where this fly is supposed to be fished. So after that, I'll start attaching with reverse jam hitch. After I explain this, I'll just use reverse jam hitch, but because I'm using super glue, I will not bother with I'll just keep tension on the tag, but I will not bother pulling this tag as usual to secure it. Of course, if I bounce the hook, I may actually loosen everything, but it didn't happen so far, so let's do it like this. Now, before you start tying this, you want to use maybe grinding stone to kind of make a little bit more taper to this very end of the bead, and roughen up this smooth surface over here. Roughening it up with the grinding stone, I have a very small one that I use for hook sharpening. Roughening it up, it takes just a couple of seconds, like that's it. You don't need to do it more. And to taper this part here, it takes more than just a few seconds, but it's still like you need 20 seconds per bead to keep everything perfect as possibly can be. Now I'll just put this on the top of the hook, slide it all the way to the hook eye, and then make a couple of wraps in each of these gaps over here, making sure that bead is on the top of the hook shank. It will twist on you a little bit sometimes, so be careful about that. You can always, after you do this, look it from the side, see if you're satisfied. If you are, great. put some super glue on it. At this moment I'll be rather generous with super glue because I want glue to penetrate everywhere and to keep everything as strong as possible. So, but I will be careful to put some glue on this tapered part over here because that part is very important. We need to make it kind of rough to make more friction so the thread won't slide, because when you start tying this, when it's just smooth, when you pull on it, the thread will just slip down and slip down and slip down. So I make one rough layer, not too much as you can see, and then I'll just jump over and start building the dam over here, which will help me build this transition between hook and the bead. You don't need to cover everything up and smoothen it up 100% because you will make too much build up at the bottom. I mean, it's already rough fly, so I'll do the whip finish knot at this point, put this bead aside and take the bead that I already made for the purpose of video. Believe it or not, this is my 5th take on this fly. Every time I turn on the camera something goes wrong. So this is it. Leave it aside to get dry, because you need, even super glue needs some time to get dry. And obviously if you make one and then finish the fly, another one, finish the fly, it just doesn't make sense. You need it dry. Make as many of these bodies before tying actual flies, because it will be easier for you later on to tie these flies. I'll use Semperfli Nano Silk 18/aught to make this fly. It's rough, it's thin, so for me that's all I need to make this fly. So start regular way this time. Okay. I'll take some wire, and as I showed you, it's soft in small size gold, but I used purple as well. I used anything, like, I'm not so concerned about color of the wire. It's just my personal preference. It's not that I think that fish will like one wire over the other. Now, because I told you already, there is a gap over here, yeah? So I want to eliminate that gap, and I'll use wire for that purpose. Now I'm not concerned whether I'm gonna put on near side or far side, and this is because of the thread. The color is coming off, so I'll just put it on the top or in the inner side of the hook, whatever you want to call it. Cover it here and then cover it along the shank. From time to time you can actually untwist the thread to make it more flat, because more flat is less likely. It's not unlikely, but it's just less likely to slide. I think I have some residual super glue over here. Yes, I do. This thread is super strong, that's why I like it. Not even this one little strand can be broken with hands. Now I'll go all the way to the wire, and I'll just lift wire a little bit, because it will help thread stay in the place. It won't slide down the hook. Now for the pheasant tail, I will use more than usual. So for a regular 16 pheasant tail, I will use maybe 3, 4, 5 at max, 6 if I'm crazy sometimes, but now I'll take many more, as you can see. And the reason for that is purely because I need less wraps. I want to cover the whole body with less wraps. If I use just 3 barbs, I will need more wraps around the hook shank to cover the body, but with this I need only few. I mean, obviously, if you have very long pheasant tail, like that 10 centimeter long, you can do it with like 3, 4, or 5 barbs, but I don't have it. This is maybe 4, 5 centimeters long, so that's why I use it this way. I have around 10 barbs over here. And because I don't want tail to be too long, for like very obvious reason, at least for me, if I keep it too long like this, it will look more like an extension of body than actual tail of the fly. If I keep it short, well, then it may actually resemble tail. And that's my goal here. Plus, I will have longer working length of those barbs to work with to wrap around the hook. So use pull up to pull down technique. You don't want your thread to rotate your tail around the shank. So I go around without tension and then pull this way. And then I'll just jump. Wait. Yeah, it slid a little bit, it's okay. As you can see, it's still not preventing everything from sliding. Now, durability of the fly is very important. That's why we use super glue for securing the bead, and that's why we are going to use super glue now. I'll just use drop, as you can see, but try not to soak into the barbs. You have time, you can be a little bit generous because there is plenty of thread already around the hook. So you can actually spread it around, thread will soak a little bit of thread, and that's okay. You want it soaked into the thread because it will keep everything better. Now, I'll wrap everything in the opposite direction to how I wrap the thread, and as you can see, it's rather wide when I wrap it around. So I just need a couple of turns with my hands and it's already done. Now I'll cross it with thread, 1, 2 over and 2 in front to lock everything, and we're almost done. Cut it as close as you can. That's why good scissors are sometimes very good. You may have noticed that I have a little tag, red tag over here, in wire that's quite far away from the pheasant tail. That's done on purpose. Now look at this. I'll make one wrap and pull up to pull down. One wrap, pull up to pull down. I did it the opposite way, first wrap. And then just go halfway and all around and then pull. Make one revolution and then one pull. One turn, one pull. So don't pull all the way because you may just slide it down. Okay. I'll put my finger under the hook and pull with my thread hard to try to catch this wire with as much force as possible. Then break off the wire and we'll finish the fly. This is a very slight and subtle hotspot, barely visible if you ask me, but still looks nice. Now final touch is again all about securing the fly. So I'll take a very small drop, much smaller than for the body, and I'll try to cover whip finish in super glue, and only whip finish, nothing else, because if I cover pheasant tail, then the pheasant tail loses its properties. It gets matted down by super glue, looks terrible. So it's better to use just thread in some kind of this red wine color instead of pheasant tail or brown color, whatever you think it suits. So this will be the finished fly. So guys, this is finished fly. I hope you liked it. I hope you learned something from this video. It's rough, not subtle at all, but it's very useful, and it's made my day a couple of times when nothing else was working for me. So I highly suggest and recommend that you have a couple of these in your boxes, obviously in different sizes, different weights. 4mm weights around 0.75 grams. No idea how much is that in ounces, but it's almost a gram when you make for 4mm one. So it's a lot of weight for a nymph. So guys, thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Until next time, tight lines and keep safe.